who is a senior mobile developer at iFlix as well, and we both are working on Android TV heavily over there, and that's what we are going to talk about today. So first thing is, what are we going to cover today? So today we are going to cover about what are the differences between users interaction in mobiles versus TV, how you can design an effective TV application, as well as some bits and tricks and tips about using Leanback library and why we are using Leanback library specifically. The first main thing which I feel is important in designing any applications literally is, first of all, and I think so it should be in should be taken care, is like user interaction, designs and UX and code framework. And I have put user interaction first because we need to always care about how user is going to behave on the app, how he is going to find it easier to use our apps, then work towards best coding and best implementation. So yeah, the first thing which I feel is, and I'm sure you all visually understand as well, the biggest difference between having a mobile app versus TV app is, this is the smallest window, it looks big in this one, ignore that, and this is a big screen. So big screen means a lot of complications, right? You need to have very high definition images, you need to have content which is high definition, as well as you need to have interaction which is highly simpler. So if I think about things which I want to see in TV apps, that light is coming on my face. If I want to think about apps which I would like to see in TV apps, as you all can think of, first thing is Netflix or Foxtel. So similar to that, we have iFlix app, which is quite similar to Netflix, but for Asian markets. So that's one of the things. Music apps, you might want to see some fashion related apps. You might want to see some apps which are for TED Talks, but mainly very visual content, right? So that's first thing where you should question yourself, do I need this app in TV, right? The second thing is, why we give more importance to user interaction is because the user engagement is very high in TV applications compared to mobile applications. So what we have learned in our iFlix app as well, that our mobile app has very varied user interactions scale. Like some are for 3 minutes, 2 goes up to 3-4 hours. But if you see about the TV app, people are sitting on their couches and just watching a movie or a TV series, right? So the the amount of time user is on the TV is way higher. The other thing about TV app is it's not a mobile app. You can't touch it, you can't swipe it, you can't scroll it. All you can do is use your mouse's right and left buttons, up and down buttons to navigate. Imagine typing in a mobile in a TV app using that remote, right? So these are the tricky bits where user comes first, how he's gonna interact with the TV app. And then lastly, I want to talk about the difference between TV app and a mobile app. So this is iFlix app. If you can see here, there is no focus state. Even though there is a focus state behind the scenes, but there is no real focus state which is visible to user. Over here you can see that white box. That is a focus state, right? So in TV apps, you have to have something where it is visually visible to user that yes, this is where my cursor is right now. The second biggest difference is the way content is laid out. If you can see, that one doesn't have content, everything squeezed in at one place. The title of the movie is here, the characters are there. Over here, it's all in vertically aligned, right? Even when you use the mobile app, you use this as a swipe. Whereas in this one, your left and right arrow will to come in picture. So that's where I feel that designing a mobile TV app is very, very important to think about the way user is going to behave on it.
Thanks, Kruti. Yeah, so why build apps using Leanback, right? So ultimately, like, it kind of comes down to that all TVs are not created equal. We come from an analog space until now it's a digital space, but there is a lot of, like, in terms of resolutions, there's a lot of variance between all the TVs, and Leanback handles that like nicely. Traditionally, when you like a TV station or whatever, when they put data through them, they have a thing called overscan, which is on the edges. You have to factor in different people's TV, basically having different sizes, different resolutions. So there's about 15% of space around the edges that you kind of have to add. And Leanback sort of does that automatically for you in terms of, like, sort of any sort of data that you added, like, you don't need to worry about any of that sort of like legacy issues. And also, not all remotes are created equal. There's a lot of like IR or whatever that they send different sort of signals. But like if you're on Android TV, then it sort of wraps all that into a nice sort of key mapping for you, and you basically handle it like you would normally for a normal Android system. Also with Leanback, like filling large screen spaces with content like the 2D array is very easy. You just like throw a bunch of stuff at it, and I'll talk about how to do that later. But yeah, and the 2D content is basically the focus model on your remote. All that stuff is handled for you. Activity transitions, the thing is that's one of the big, really nice things with doing things on the Leanback, is that it handles background transitions. Going from activity to activity, you no longer see the sort of like shrinking animations and slide. You don't need to worry about any of that. In your activity A, when you're transitioning to 2, like in A, you set the background to a particular picture. In B, you set to another picture. It'll automatically blend that transition. So all that stuff is handled really nice. But otherwise, Leanback is basically just like any other sort of Android UI library that basically wrap around a lot of the standard UI elements. So these are actually interchangeable. You can actually run Leanback stuff on tablets if you wanted to. And I'll show you some example TV apps that comes with Leanback, and this is slightly older version of iFlix, but with Leanbacks, I assume most of you have seen like what it kind of looks like, and this is a characteristics of Leanback apps, of having search up here with this right column, left columns, and then pages kind of laid out this way with 2D contents that goes down. And basically this is a fragment that comes standard with Leanback. You just need a few adapters, and it'll go through all this stuff for you, essentially. Like text also basically having the same sort of look. So if you love this look, then it's really easy. If you don't love this look, then there are other ways around it. This is another example. This is a music video app. This has Stan. It might not look like a typical Leanback thing because it doesn't have the sort of left column, but I know this is a Leanback app because I built it. All right. So what are some of the limitations and pitfalls? So going from a standard mobile app to Leanback, the vocabulary is different. Like when in typical mobile, you would work with recycler views, and basically, I'm sure everybody's have written like hundreds of recycler view adapters and view holders. But with Leanback, a lot of that is sort of tipped on your head. We now operates on things called presenters and adapters, and they work differently to the recycler view adapters, because now like you have a 2D, so you can sort of stack one layer 1D presenter and adapter, and then sort of stack another layers of adapter presenter. They come in pairs essentially, and we no longer really work with view holders, because with view holders the thing is view and view holders, they usually come in one-to-one. So on Leanback, basically they just sort of merge them together. They're underlying sort of architecture, it'll still use the same view holders, but you don't directly operate that way anymore. Another thing is the UI design can be a little rigid, because like it'll for example these ones by default they'll look like this, and it gives you something like this, for example, just out of the box. There are a lot of really nice things that's already kind of covered as part of the Leanback, but if you want to deviate from that, then you'll go back to have to build your own views, which is okay. Like most of us do that. It's really fragment heavy, and I don't know what people's opinion on that, but like on our team, we have a saying called death to fragments. We really don't like fragments. Managing fragment life cycles it's a bit of a thing, and we're experimenting with some other ways of doing that, but Leanback is fragment heavy. A lot of this stuff basically you more or less always operating in fragments, and yeah, it's kind of okay, but not ideal personally. Focus management. So as Kruti said before, we are limited to using TV remote, so just D-pad only, directional keys and sensor selection back. That's about everything that you get. So if you use standard Leanback, everything is fine, more or less. But if you want to add additional things, like for example pop-up dialogues, they are really easy on mobile, and people know if there's a button you can press it. But having a modal dialogue on TV may mean you can get into a place where you can't navigate in or out of it. Like basically having the next focus ID in your UI layout, next focus previous, that sort of thing, it's pretty crucial. You probably didn't have to worry about it too much before, unless you're doing a lot of accessibility stuff, but with Leanback, like you need to have that nailed down. Basically, when you're testing, you should only test with directional keys. Like if you run it in emulators, it's okay. You can still click on stuff, but if you don't try to pretend you're one of the users, you may lose a lot of like sort of subtle things that you miss. We can't use app compact, which is can be issues, because app compat activity is really nice, but the theme that you use must be sort of derivative of the app compat themes. But with Leanback, it wants its own theme, which is derived from Hollow, which is slightly older, but it's okay. So that's something that you kind of need to think about when you're doing your layout. If you want a lot of like the newer features, instead of normal image views, you might actually have to use the app compat image views instead. So there are subtle things like that. Take care of sizing. Sizing is one of those things when you might not notice it as a developer. Like when we're developing, we might be sort of putting the running Android TV on just like on a screen beside us, but you kind of need to imagine a user will be sitting in their living room sofa like 4 meters away, and so if you use like fonts that 16 dp that looks okay on your phone, might be way too small for TV. So there are things that you need to consider.
So while he was talking, I remembered one of the troubles which I had when I joined iFlix. I joined iFlix about a month and a half ago. And the fun fact is, I have about 10 years of experience in Android, never worked on Android TV. And when I started working on Android TV, I faced so many issues because it's just completely different mindset you have to develop an app for. So now, what are the tips I have found when I was working on, when I started working on this project? So one of it is take the minimalist approach, have everything in front of user in the simplest way possible. You don't have to complicate it, you don't have to have too much information as well. Make it simple. If you see any of the TV apps, they just have images and images, along with it some titles and some little bit of information. This is the best way to go to get more interaction from users. The second one is educate designers with TV design guidelines. My God, this has been a tough job, honestly, because when they design app, they become too optimistic that this is how the app is gonna look, and we are gonna have ratings, and we are gonna have so many different things in app, but not necessarily user wants to have that in there. And that's something, as a developer, it's your job to tell a designer, because designer might not know. And Google has a really good document which you can use to guide them. Next one is keep consistencies in your mobile and TV apps by following material design. So you don't want your mobile and TV app to look very opposite or very different. You want it to still, when user is on his mobile and viewing content, he should be able to view the similar content, similar way in your TV app as well. So, So for example, in our mobile app, we also have a sliding menu exactly the way we have in our TV app. And the last one is avoid forms of any kind. As I said before, entering information, imaging, registering on TV app with that idiotic remote is just nightmare. I hate to type on TV apps. I just want to quickly find out the title of the movie and just use that for viewing content. So these are the main 4 tips I have for you guys. And
there are quite a bit of resources online, not as much as mobile development obviously, but Google I/O videos, they go all the way back to 14. I think 16 is when they started to being a bit more mainstream, so there are a lot of really good contents on that. And also like the design guide that you mentioned before is really good resource. You should put there is another, if you when you Google and if you don't put the material in it, there's an older guide. It's quite different. So so this is the new one.
This is the, in the quotation mark, whatever that is the right word.
Google that. Use that as keyword.
Cool. Awesome. Any questions, guys?